Hello, everybody. You know, there's some tools in the DMK therapeutic kit that people use for certain things, and they end up using them all the time, and sometimes they may not even know the original reason I formulated that tool. And a lot of our tools have multiple uses. So we're going to start off with one important one that most of you know as part of the lift-off treatment when we do Pro-Alpha 6 layer peels and other deep skin resurfacing. And yes, it's very good for that. I'm talking about Desquamate. Originally in Chicago, back in many years ago, I had a lot of very wealthy Jewish American princess trade. They were all very wealthy ladies from Glencoe and Evanston, and their husbands, of course, were wealthy and they didn't work. So they spent most of their time doing what ladies nowadays don't do a lot, is going to lunch and going to Elizabeth Arden's Red Door on Michigan Avenue and getting treatments. And I had a lot of these people. Now, back in those days when I was doing enzyme 1, 2, and 3, etc., the cheeks and other areas of the face would come up beautifully. But many times the tissue around the eyes would lift off much slower. Now, I knew that with enough treatment that would go away and they would look incredible, but sometimes it didn't as fast as they would like it. And it would kind of, dead cells, when they come to the surface and they're still attached, they turn kind of dark because they're dead and they look crinkly. And they had trust in me when I would tell them, yes, this will go. But the husbands didn't. The husbands would say, hey, I'm paying that guy a whole bunch of money for your treatments, and how come your eyes look worse than they ever did before? So in desperation, I tried to come up with something that I called a quick cell remover. So I put together Desquamate. And Desquamate was applied all by itself. Did you want to cleanse the patient real quick here? It moved very quickly all by itself. And this solved the problem. And it wasn't until years later, just by circumstance, in my apartment, I had an interview with a big college to teach a class, and I wanted to look good. So I went to my place, my bedroom. I had my enzyme 1, and no exoderma peel, no aqua de herb. What am I going to do? I looked down, I saw this bottle of Desquamate, and I thought, well, okay, let's see. Mixed it up, put it on, laid down, fell asleep for 2 hours. Jumped up thinking, oh my God, what have I done to my face? Didn't even look in the mirror. Ran in the shower, washed it off, looked in the mirror, and I looked about 20 years old. And I thought, wow, this really does work. So it became the mother of the bride treatment because it's a quick, showy treatment that really brightens and firms the skin immediately. Later on, it became the liftoff for our deeper resurfacing treatments when we came up with our alpha hydroxys and so on. And the mother of the bride came because a lot of times in those days, the mom would bring their daughters and bridal party to my clinic, and they would never talk about themselves. Oh, I don't care how I look. And I would say, madam, this is your big day too. This is your daughter's first and hopefully only marriage. So you have to look good too. So I would do that treatment, and it became known as the mother of the bride. We found out later that Desquamate is actually a lot more powerful than Quick Peel, a lot more powerful than Prozyme, even more powerful than the alpha hydroxy 1 and 2, Pro-Alpha 1 and Pro-Alpha 2. It doesn't seem like it is, but it is because of the gluconic acid. In addition, it has these properties here. It has chelation. It will remove heavy metals from your skin. You didn't know that, did you? Also, it works against UVR damage and photo damage beautifully. It really dissolves the kind of intercellular glue that holds old dead cells together at their junctions, dissolves that very quickly. So you have to be a little bit careful with Desquamate. You don't do it repeatedly just because it will look good the first time. Even if you're mixing it with enzyme 1, once a month, that's it. I had a female partner back in those days, middle-aged lady, quite glamorous, and she saw what was happening, so she decided to take it home and put it on every single week. And then all of a sudden she showed up at the office with the high points of her face was red and irritated in the chin and everything. And I says, what in the heck? Oh, well, I just thought I could do it more, I'd look better. No. More is not always better. When you have anything that's keratolytic and you keep repeating it, repeating it, repeating it, not only will you start to have defense mechanisms of the skin jump up, i.e. irritation, et cetera, but you're also over thinning your skin. So when you go out in the sun, what happens? Hyperpigmentation. All right, so Desiree, let's pour a little Desquamate into the bowl after we've cleansed this person. And by the way, we have several choices of what we call pre-exfoliatives. Now, you all know about quick peel, but some people find the quick peel hot. I do. I am the worst. Men have a very low pain threshold as compared to women. Maybe it's because we don't have to bear children. I don't know, but we do. I'm the biggest baby in the world. My feet kick into a blur. But it works. So just paint it over the whole face and neck, just like you're applying a mask. Yeah. There's no sensation to this. This is why people think it's a little bit innocuous and not terribly powerful, but it's extremely powerful. Trust me. And it comes in handy for all kinds of reasons. Let's say you have, well, let's take the Irish skin. When I'm in Ireland, I notice that there's a lot of very thin skin with broken capillaries, but also very, very dry. Now, Irish skin is the fastest skin to revise like that. It's amazing. Because of its thinness and the cuticle buildup takes place over many, many years, they have this thick, kind of dry, flaky look. And boom, Desquamate removes that immediately, very quickly. But so does quick peel, and so does Prozyme. It just depends on your patient, your client, and what their skin condition is, and how you're going to proceed. I would say first-time client, middle-aged, thick cuticle buildup, female mostly, I would use Desquamate for that. Now, we're working on a new pigmentation system called Chromezyme. Don't get excited and say, where is it? Because it's now in the works, in the testing, all of that sort of thing. But we're putting the Desquamate as the pre-exfoliative in that particular system because it has a general use for almost anybody's condition. All right, so we're gonna leave this on for 5 minutes. How many minutes can I leave it on if I really have a thick buildup and a greasy, horrible skin? I would leave it up to 15 minutes. It all depends, again, use your timing, use your eyes, and use your brain when you diagnose these kind of cases. All right, now we're going to remove the Desquamate with a warm towel. And the next step is vital. It's one of my very first formulas called Sebum Soak. It was an extremely important part of the cleansing. Some people get busy. They have 4 or 5 clients waiting in the waiting room and they want to get the enzyme masks on and everything else. They're rushing around and they completely overlook it because they've done pre-exfoliative, they've cleansed, they think, well, we'll just move on to the enzyme. No, because you've got large pores. Now, this gentleman is complaining around his nose area and so on that he has large pores. We do have a treatment called Rhinovac that's specially designed to really clean all those pre-deposited fat plugs out of large pores, but we're not going to show that today. We're going to show disincrustating. That's a popular aesthetic term known around the world, disincrustating. And what happens with the Sebum Soak, you want to mix some in a bowl. Okay, here's your epidermis and here's your pore. Notice this is all filled up to the top, sometimes even beyond, where it becomes a comedone or amelia, and it's hard as a rock. It's old, dried up, dead, pre-deposited wax called sebum. And because it's so hard and so packed in there, it forces the aperture of the pore open. That's what makes it look big. So all the beauty graining and buff puffing and pre-exfoliatives and everything else you want to do up here isn't going to do a darn thing about this material down here. So we got to hydrolyze it. We got to get rid of it. We got to have the type of chemistry that spirals down and starts to break up those pre-deposited fats, okay? Now, what happens when you take a stick of cold butter out of the refrigerator and put it on a hot stove? It changes its shape. It melts. So we're going to use heat at the same time as we use this disincrustating lotion called Sebum Soak. This should be part of everybody's cleansing, no matter what treatment they're having within any DMK clinic around the world. Automatically. Keep it on hand. Don't forget it. And you know what, Desiree? I'm a bad boy because I didn't get our galvanic out. Most of you know how to operate a galvanic machine. It's one of the oldest machines in beauty therapy in the world. Most of you have one somewhere with cobwebs hanging on it if you're not using it. But it's one of the few that actually do something because it carries an electrical current through an iontophoresis formulated product and back again, assisting the action of that product. So going back, if you have a waiting room with a bunch of people waiting and you still want to do Sebum Soak, you can use your galvanic, go over it for about 3 minutes. And this drives it down further. And then, of course, the end of the treatment, to the last product we're going to talk about, you change the polarity to snap the emptied out pore shut. That's how we get pores from big to small. Never go away, but it will be a lot less and look a lot more refined. So go ahead, Sebum Soak. Very simple to apply. Do we have any plastic? This is one place you can occlude, and this can be left on, again, depending on how clogged, how many impacted comedones, melia, etc., up to 10 minutes. With the galvanic, 3 minutes. So she works it in, and then you want to get your plastic out and do an occlusion. Following the plastic, we put a hot towel, and the reason I have this steam going is we want to keep this hot. Remember the analogy of the cold stick of butter out of the refrigerator onto the hot stove? Well, we need to use the heat. Now, to be honest with you, back in the old days, they would steam the face all the time for acne, steam the face all the time for everything. Oh, it feels so good. You don't steam the face for long periods of time. That is an old wives' tale, because that will cause the endocrine system produces more sudoriferous secretion, more sweat, and you're dehydrating the heck out of the skin. But we want just enough heat for this to work, so use your steam machines to keep the towel hot. Because you don't want to stand there going back and forth to your hot cab, slapping hot towels on all the time. You know, that's a waste of time. So we just get it nice and hot with this. You can turn their face towards it. And people do like the smell. Some of our therapists will put a little drop of essential oils in, aromatherapy or whatever, anything to calm the spirit, relax the patient. And there is something to be said for olfactory sensation through the power of essential oils. It does trigger different things with the hormone system and creates a sense of calming, you know, working through the brain. It's not just a nice smelling essential oil. All right, so again, that's on for 5 minutes. Fat floats with all that water brought in, up comes those fat plugs right out of the nose. And your nose looks smaller. It actually does. It feels clearer and it obviously is more refined. So keep in mind that these all work around how a particular chemical acts in the skin. So do not forget Sebum Soak. It is an integral part of DMK deep cleansing. Now you know different ways that you can use Desquamate, not just for the liftoff, on many, many clients, and always, always do not forget the Sebum Soak.